YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. With Bobby Slow expiring, the question has become, who are the Texans interested in and what names are realistic that keep popping up? So let's just get straight into this video. And if you like more Texans content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm always creating content every single day. So if you like that, go ahead and stick around. And yeah, let's get straight into this video. First, I want to start with some honorable mentions. These aren't super honorable, but I've heard these names come around and I don't really understand the hype. The first one being Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, he hasn't been a coordinator for decades. He's been a head coach. Yes, he's won a Super Bowl, but keep him away from the Texans franchise. I don't think he would take an offensive coordinator role unless things really started going south for him. I hope he finds a head coaching job. I hope it's nowhere near Texas. Stay away from the Texans. I don't know why people are high up on this guy. He's been, mediocre for years and years now. So keep McCarthy away, and I don't want him near the Texans. The second name I keep hearing get floated around is Doug Peterson. And again, Doug Peterson, probably not as, high up, and probably doesn't have that much hype around him as he did when he was coming off of that Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl and that success. I just feel like his spirit's been a little crushed with what's happened in Jacksonville. And Trevor Lawrence is a very physically gifted quarterback. I'm not going to say he's amazing, but Doug Peterson hasn't really been able to make it work with Trevor Lawrence. You could argue that some of the other names on my list that I have higher than him have made more work with less. And I also just don't think it's that realistic for him to want to come to Houston or for Houston to want to kind of give him the role. So again, Doug Peterson, out on. So now let's talk about some names that I really do think could potentially be the candidate. And I'm going to start from worst to best. So I'm going to give you 4 names here. So last on my list is an internal hire, and it's Gerard Johnson. Let me start with the pros. The pros are he was CJ Stroud's quarterback coach for the past 2 years. He has a good relationship with CJ Stroud. He's generated a lot of offensive coordinator interest from other teams, both after last year and after this year with the Jets. And I do think there is something to kind of having that familiar face, step up and kind of within the organization give him the opportunity to call plays. But that's about where my pros end. There's a lot of cons that I have with this. The first con being he's someone that's been in the building when this offense has been bad. Like, that's another way to look at it. That is not a good thing to have on your resume. You could make the argument, and I don't think the Texans would do this, but you could make the argument that he should be interviewed to keep his job because CJ Stroud has regressed to the level that he has, and Gerard Johnson is supposed to be the guy responsible for the quarterback's play, besides the quarterback. So again, I know I saw a report saying that he was the top candidate if the Texans choose to hire internally. I just really hope they don't hire internally. Also, if you really trusted Gerard Johnson and you really wanted, you were really down to give him the reins, why didn't you fire Bobby Slowick at the bye week and then hand it over to Gerard and see if it got better? They ultimately didn't do that. I don't know if that's because they just didn't want to change the coordinators or if they don't trust him that much. I'm leaning toward they just don't trust him that much. And again, I don't want an internal hire. Gerard Johnson seems to be the name, but stay away from me. That's the 4th guy on my list. And the reason why he's 4th and not lower is because I think I'm also going off of like realism and realistically, right? So realistically, I could see Gerard Johnson, getting hired over like Doug Peterson, So that's kind of why I have that the way I have it. 3rd on my list is Clint Kubiak, Gary Kubiak's son. So he's the offensive coordinator for the Saints. They obviously started off really strong. Ultimately had some pretty significant injuries that kind of happened. Also had to work with, Derek Carr, who was injured throughout some of the season and, just went through a lot of injuries. Obviously, things started to go south for the Saints. But I do have kind of a concern over the Kubiak tree. I do wonder whether or not the NFL is kind of caught up with it. There definitely seem to be some play calling issues, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I watched a lot of Saints games, but I did catch a couple, and I did feel like the offense was just very stagnant. At some point, I feel like the injury thing becomes more of an excuse. I didn't really like the explosiveness in his offense towards the second half of the season. I really didn't see that much success from the Saints. And, you have like guys like Alvin Kamara, like you have some level of talent around there. Chris Olave, I know had a bunch of concussions, so you can't really call him out. But I just didn't feel like their offense clicked as well as it should have. Yet, I don't think you can do too much worse than Clint Kubiak. If he ultimately is the hire, I don't think you feel upset about it. I don't think you feel defeated about it. unlike Gerard Johnson. I think he has some, play calling ability that's definitely there. He is talented at it, and he has had success with it. I just think these other two names are a little bit better. So getting into the second person on my list, this is Nick Caley. Now, if you don't know who Nick Caley is, he is the Rams passing game coordinator. So what I like about Nick Caley is he was actually offered an offensive coordinator job last year with the Jets. He ultimately refused it. Now I know currently the Jets are still very interested in Nick Caley. I think they're actually trying to finalize a deal with him, any day now. So if he's on the Texans list, which it has been reported that Nick Caley, is someone the Texans are talking to, you really need to make sure you get in there and you try to convince him to take this job. Does he really want to work with the Jets and 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers? Yes, I know Aaron Glenn's there now, but does he want that, or does he want to work with C.J. Stroud, a rising quarterback in a bad division where knock on wood, somewhat guaranteed to make the playoffs, right? And why do I not like Nick Caley so much? Pretty simple. He's a McVay guy. Sean McVay has, praised this dude. He loves this dude. He's been offered an offensive coordinator job and he turned it down. And the McVay tree definitely seems to be like one of the trees that's been the most successful in the NFL, at least these past couple of years. A lot of McVay's stuff just works. I mean, you saw obviously the Rams making the playoffs and ultimately falling to the Eagles, but that was a Rams team that was that fought till the end. I love McVay. I'm a huge McVay guy. I like the way his plays look. I like the timing of his plays. And I definitely think, Nick Caley being the pass game coordinator, that's not just some blow off job, right? That is a guy who has a lot of say and a lot of pull in the McVay system, and McVay himself speaks very highly of him. So that's kind of why I like Nick Caley. It's because I love McVay, and I think he's a great choice. And he was offered the job earlier and turned it down. And so finally, number one, the guy I think that could really, really, really turn this Texans offense around is none other than Chip Kelly. So Chip Kelly has been a head coach in the NFL before. Things weren't perfect. They weren't amazing. He's also been an offensive coordinator as well. Chip Kelly by far has the most experience out of any person I've named so far. And that's really what sticks out to me. Oh, by the way, he just won the national championship at The Ohio State University. There have been concerns on whether, you're really going to be able to pry this dude away from the Ohio State University. However, the fact that he's already won a national championship might work in your favor because, hey, he's done all he can in college. You've reached the tip of the mountain. Maybe you want to go to the NFL, right? Now, the reporting on him has been that he's really interested, or he's closely, interested into the Texans organization and the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. Now, come on, if you're Chip Kelly, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer on which job is better and more appealing. So I do think if it comes down to if we really like him and it's between us and Jacksonville, I really think we get him, which is a huge positive. He has a tie with D'Amico. He actually coached with D'Amico, and they were really close. He spoke very fondly of D'Amico. D'Amico spoke very fondly of him. Hey, he's been in the same system that C.J. Stroud was in at Ohio State University. I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought their offensive kind of, play calling and scheme was perfect 100% of the time. Chip Kelly does love to run the football. But hey, look, what more can you ask for? He was a head coach. He was an offensive coordinator in the NFL. He was a head coach in college at UCLA, and an offensive coordinator in one of the best college football programs in the nation. And he just took them to a national championship through his play calling. So again, I really like Chip Kelly. I love the experience, and I really hope that he is ultimately the hire of the Houston Texans. So just real quick to recap in order, we have Chip Kelly as my number one, Nick Caley from the Rams at number two, Clint Kubiak from the Saints at number three, and then Gerard Johnson I don't really want. I kind of just put him on there out of realism. And could I see them hiring Gerard Johnson? I could see it, unfortunately. But those are my four picks, but let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? What are your, choices for the new offensive coordinator job? And what do you think the Texans will end up doing? And if you made it this far, please like and subscribe. It helps me so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.